What do I mean by dehumanize? To identify or to classify someone wholly by the mistakes they've made and what they've done. To say things like they are just a thief, they are just an addict, they are just a criminal. You can never trust them for they are too far gone. To look down upon someone for their mistakes. Until we see and treat criminals as people, no change can be possible in our current system. By classifying and identifying people by their mistakes become their identities, and we hurt them both inside and outside of prison. Inside prison, we create power struggles. Inmates struggle to be held at a higher regard than their fellow inmate, to be top dog, so to speak. They search for respect, and they'll do anything they can to get it, even if it means they have to strike fear into their fellow inmate for that respect. Furthermore, guards hold complete control over the lives of these men and women. Outside prison, inmates can struggle to find work because they're untrustworthy criminals. Who would want to hire them? And as such, they can become entangled in the same behavior that sent them to prison in the first place, or even worse behavior, and the cycle will just continue. But there must be retribution for people's misdeeds, right? There already is. The entire purpose of prison is an exchange. Time from a criminal's life in exchange for their misdeeds towards society. Nothing more and nothing less. Countries like Germany recognize this fact. Their prisons take an approach that focuses much more on rehabilitation for reintegration into society. Their the Germany's incarceration rate is 79 people per 100,000 citizens in the country. Our incarceration rate is 716 people per 100,000 citizens. In German prisons, convicts are allowed privacy. They can cook their own meals with actual cutlery. They can learn skills and gain an education for their eventual release, and the correctional officers form relationships with them and help mentor them for their eventual release. And they help them along the way. Would this ever work in America, though? The TRUE program, an acronym standing for Truthfulness, Respect, Understanding, and Elevating, of Connecticut's Cheshire Correctional Institution, has attempted to emulate Germany's prison systems. And in the 2 years since the program's inception, as of 2019, there has not been a single fistfight or assault upon an officer within that branch of the prison. Why does it matter to you? So, show of hands, who here can drive? Now, put your hand down only if you have never broken the speed limit. No hands have gone down. It is something everyone does. You go 5 or 10 miles per hour over. Maybe it's because you're not paying attention to the speed limit. Maybe it's because you just want to get somewhere a little bit faster. But it's mostly harmless, right, you're probably thinking? Yeah, sure, it's mostly harmless until you hit someone. It's no longer simply speeding then it's called vehicular manslaughter. And I'm sure you can guess where you will go if you are charged with it. No one of us is able to claim the title of perfect. The only person that has ever lived who can claim that title will be celebrating his 2021st birthday this year. And according to Luke 5:32, I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance. He did not come for any one of us who hasn't made a mistake. I do not believe in bad people. I believe in bad choices. This is a quote from Lawrence R. Lawton, who from his early life was involved in crime. Whether it be grand theft auto, illegal gambling, loan sharking, and other organized crime activity in his early career, to, at the height of his career, robbing jewelry stores up and down the East Coast. As most criminals are, he was caught and he went to prison. Inside prison, he was a victim of and he witnessed much abuse from other inmates and from guards alike. It was a very low point of his life, and at times he thought he might just end it all by his own hand. But he didn't. He got out eventually. He served his sentence. And since being released, he now advocates for prison reform and has founded a program in which he mentors at-risk youths and tells them his story in an attempt to keep them out of prison and away from a life of crime. It is our choices and our mistakes. We are all born into sin, but you cannot show me a single person now or in the past who was born more sinful or more evil than another. It is our choices and our mistakes that shape our lives, and we should not forsake each other for them. We should be willing to help each other and forgive each other for these mistakes We are all human, we must not dehumanize each other for them. What can we do? I thought of offering some sort of physical gesture, such as becoming a pen pal to an inmate or something similar, but I believe that the true solution begins mentally. The next time you hear of someone that has done wrong, I ask you to do one thing. Do not hate them. Instead, even if they deserve it, instead, make an attempt to sympathize with them and make an attempt to love them. It might sound easy to do, but at times this simple thing can be nearly impossible. But we must do it. How can we help those that we hate? How can we help those that we look down upon, that we dehumanize? John 3:16 is a verse I'm sure we all know. But for those of us that don't, it is, "For God so loved the world that he sent his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life." It is not whosoever does good. It is not whosoever except those that do X, Y, or Z. It is simply whosoever. Anyone can be saved. That does not mean that everyone will. It's a sad truth of this world that not everyone will be. But anyone can be. They all have the potential in them. So do not hate them. Do not dehumanize them, and do not look down upon them. If we place our entire focus on the mistakes and failures of the past, how can we ever look towards the future? And with that, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening. I would like to welcome Annalisa.
Fellow classmates and friends, my name is Annalisa Stara, and I will be presenting my speech on unity. A house divided cannot stand. Abraham Lincoln said this in reference to the divide between the North and South because of slavery. I believe that his quote still applies today. The purpose of this speech is to promote unity among our divided nation. Let's look at some historical examples of how disunity can cause serious problems. Around 285 AD, the Roman Empire split, in part because it had become too large, but also because of corrupt rulers, and civil wars fought within the empire. The division of the Roman Empire eventually caused the empire to become so weak that the Visigoths were able to invade the Roman Empire and take over. This is just one example in history of how disunity can cause serious problems. In George Washington's farewell address, he warned U.S. citizens to love their country over their state and political party. Your union ought to be considered as the main prop of your liberty, and the love of one ought to endear you to the preservation of the other. George Washington realized that if our country was to flourish and grow, although we may have different beliefs, we needed to love our country more than our differences. He went on to say, "The independence and liberty you possess are work of joint councils and joint efforts, of common dangers, sufferings, and successes." Here Washington is telling us that our liberty is the effect of many people working together. When the founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence, they were willing to die for their country, to secure the liberty of the American people. This is patriotism we should all look up to and seek to repeat. Are we listening to George Washington's warnings? If we were, would we see much less unrest in our nation? If everyone followed the founding fathers' example of patriotism, maybe there would be more people working together instead of fighting against each other. Let's go back to the quote from Abraham Lincoln, "A house divided cannot stand." Abraham Lincoln said this during the Civil War, but we know that he still ended up declaring war against the South once they seceded from the Union. This brings up an important question of when should we draw the line? When should we stick up for what we believe is right? If President Lincoln would have just said we needed to love others and not sign the Emancipation Proclamation freeing the slaves, where would our country be now? Lincoln did what he could to free the slaves without war, but when the South separated from the Union, he had to do something, so he declared war. At some point, we need to know when to draw the line between loving others and sticking up for what we believe in. This is very important, because if the Founding Fathers hadn't stuck up for what they believed in, we wouldn't even have our country today. What is the cause of the unrest we see? Of course, the ultimate cause is sin, but another cause would be because we have so many different beliefs. When George Washington wrote his farewell address, most people went to church and had Christian principles. On the contrary, if you were to go to a public place today, you would encounter many different beliefs about God and the world. This is one of the root problems of our disunity. If not everyone believes similar things, or even has similar values, it's no wonder people tend to have such a hard time getting along. So what's the solution? You see, the problem comes from a change in values and because of sin. The only thing that can truly change our nation is Jesus Christ. America needs to return to its Christian heritage if it will ever achieve its former glory. My challenge for you is, instead of seeing other people as bad or evil because they believe differently, challenge the ideas and not the people. Show them the love of Jesus Christ so that they may come to see the truth and their hearts may be changed. How can you share the love of Jesus Christ with other people? The Bible says to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Praying for and loving your enemies doesn't mean you agree with them. On the contrary, it acknowledges that you know and believe what they are doing is wrong, and you want them to change. Lastly, the Bible says, make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Imagine if all Christians worked together to love others and keep the peace of the Spirit. The world would be a much better place to live in. Of course, there will always be people who believe differently, but this doesn't mean we should give up. We can always do better to love others, even when it's hard. But if we all work together, the world will be a much better place to live in. In conclusion, we should look at history and see that unless our country turns back towards Christ and observes what our great first president said, we might very well end up just like the Roman Empire. A house divided cannot stand. So we need to unify our nation using the love of Christ. Thank you for listening. We will have a 10-minute intermission, and then Ethan will present his speech.
You believe that 1.5 million people are homeless in America today? Well, it's true. Unfortunately, over 1.5 million people suffer daily with the problem of not having help. There's different like being homeless, it could be that maybe you just couldn't afford to pay all your bills or anything, so you lost your home, or maybe you're living with a family member, a friend, or a relative. Or there's people that live on the streets that have to sleep on the cement sidewalk or just under an overpass. And those people, because they don't have a home, they don't have money, and they don't have food, so they have to rely on their food source coming from people either being nice and handing it to them, or from they even take food out of garbage cans and dumpsters and eat it, which probably would not be very good. William Booth once said, "Work as if everything depended upon work, and pray as if everything depended upon prayer." So would you pray for these people as if their life depended upon you praying for them? Proverbs 19:17 says, "Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deed." And as Christians, we're called to help those in need. And William Booth set a really good example for us as Christians. He spent basically his entire life helping others. There was preaching the gospel, or setting up food pantries or soup kitchens for those who were hungry that needed food. A good way to help is just as little as if you donate your old clothes or toys to Salvation Army. They'll take the profit from your donations and help their homeless shelters to help those in need that need home or food. And so in conclusion, since there's 1.5 million people homeless, and a great way is, like I said, to donate to the Salvation Army. So together we can help fight homelessness, to help those in need find help, hope, and a second chance at life. Thank you.
To fall asleep after eating, meals, or even just one small meal. or to wake up and have no breakfast sitting for you at the table. Hunger is a big problem in the world, and even with over a dozen organizations helping hungry, there's still 690 million people starving in the world today. Hunger is more than just well, in most cases, hunger is more than just craving of food. The word hunger means a feeling of discomfort or weakness caused by the lack of food. Hunger can cause nausea, lightheadedness, blurry vision, double vision, and dizziness. The main cause of hunger is poverty. Poverty means a state of being extremely poor. These people are poor because in the countries that they live in, they make $2 or less a day. And without the money that you need to buy clothes, water, food, or things to make money off of, you can't really live, basically. And hunger can also lead to poverty, because if you don't have the food that you need, then you will have low energy and poor health, and that will reduce your ability to work and make money. Every 10 seconds, someone dies from hunger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Someone just died from hunger within those 10 seconds. That person could have been saved from death if people could have donated to hunger organizations. 25,000 people per day die from hunger. In Matthew 5:24 it says to give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse to the one who would borrow from you. If you'd like to help these people, please donate to feedmystarvingchildren.com. It is a Christian nonprofit organization. Next, I'd like to welcome
Hello students, parents, and Mrs. McDonald. My name is Luke, and today I will be speaking on abortion. I believe that as a whole, American society is becoming more self-worshiping, and in turn we care less about the way we affect other people's lives. Rather than thinking about if we do something wrong, how it can hurt someone, we just think about how can we benefit ourselves. In turn, I believe that this can, rather than treating the children who are being aborted as children or as people, we only think of them as an inconvenience to ourselves. Today, I will be speaking on the topic of abortion and why I believe it is wrong, and why I believe it can actively make us less aware of how we're doing wrong. What is the definition of abortion? Well, it is technically the termination of a human pregnancy, most often within the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. To put it simply, it is the removal of a child from their mother. Imagine a person is in a coma. Now, eventually, at some point, they will awaken from the coma and be completely fine. Is it okay to take this person's life? Of course not. Because not only would this kill someone who's eventually going to wake up, but also because the person whose life is at stake has no control over whether or not he or she is killed. This directly corresponds with the argument of abortion. Just because the children who are being aborted cannot speak for themselves doesn't make it okay to kill them. They are simply still forming the organs and body parts that will allow them to one day live as independent people. By Planned Parenthood alone, in their annual report between the years of 2019 and 2020, they showed that they had performed over 350,000 abortions. To put this number into perspective, in the Vietnam War, nearly 60,000 people American soldiers lost their lives. This means that in 1 year, Planned Parenthood killed more children than the Vietnam War did to American soldiers. On Abby Johnson's website, she shows the stories of people who have worked in the abortion industry, and it allows them to talk about how their jobs affected their lives. One person who was interviewed on this was named Carolyn. Now, in the interview, Carolyn talked about how when she became pregnant, and after she had her child, Planned Parenthood forced her to work more hours rather than giving her time off. She said that this became such a problem to her that at one point, in fact, I was so rattled that I knew the feeling inside was something I had to deal with. I couldn't carry it around. I was growing bitter. It was unhealthy. Later on, she started attending church again, and she received a pastor gave a sermon, and he told her, as told everyone in the audience, that if they wanted to make their relationship with Christ better, they should read the Bible every day. And he specifically mentioned reading from the book of Matthew. Carolyn did this, and over time she came to have a great relationship with Christ and used it to help her with the issues that she'd been dealing with from Planned Parenthood. One day, while she was still working for Planned Parenthood, she was requested to receive training on a new contraceptive tool. Some of you may be wondering, what does contraceptive mean? It is essentially a tool or procedure used to prevent a pregnancy. On her way, after she arrived at the abortion clinic that was teaching on this new contraceptive, she saw, and I quote, "As the doors opened, I saw women sitting shoulder to shoulder, waiting for their abortions, and my heart began to wrench. I no longer saw just one life affected by abortion, but the child within as well." At this, she told her supervisor that she had to leave and that she couldn't stay. The manager who drove her came and picked her up, and they were off. In the car ride, Carolyn asked her manager what she was speaking about with the other managers in her meeting, and she replied, "Quotas," and she later stated, "Abortions are how we make our money." This was the final straw for Carolyn. She left her job in the abortion industry and went to work at a local health department. She, later on down the road, went to and then there were none, retreat for women. She claims that the dark secrets of the heart receive the warm, healing light of women just like me, who embrace me while offering no judgment. I believe that this is a great way to help for those who are either in or who are either trying to get out or have gotten out of the abortion industry. Although I believe abortion has taken the lives of countless children, there are still a multitude of ways in which we can prevent them from occurring. I believe that perhaps the most effective is by giving to those who are in or leaving the abortion industry, because by doing so and taking action, we show not only our care, but most importantly, God's care to these people and His love. 40 Days for Life is an organization that is trying to get people out of the industry and close down abortion clinics. Currently, they have helped over 200 abortion workers resign, closed over 100 abortion clinics, and have saved over 18,000 lives since the year 2007. They do many things, including community outreach, which can be door-to-door petitions, news stories, or editorials. Abby Johnson is someone who worked in the abortion industry for 8 years. She went on to win Planned Parenthood's annual Margaret Sanger Award and became the director of a clinic. She left her job in the abortion industry and started the organization, and then there were none. This organization has helped over 550 people leave their jobs in the abortion industry, has provided them with mental health rehabilitation and financial compensation, and has just been very kind to them. It's much harder for people to leave the abortion industry than some of you may think, myself included before I learned about it. According to her website, 60% of people who have left the abortion industry and have came to Abby Johnson for help have had to deal with insomnia, and that nearly 20% have at one point attempted suicide. By giving to those who are in this industry, Michelle Bartlett. I believe that abortion is an issue that has plagued America for far too long. With the normalization of abortion, the viewpoint of a right to life can be seen as more extremist than the right to end one. Not only this, but now there are a multitude of government officials seeking to make abortions legal in later terms in a pregnancy. In Matthew 25:45, Jesus states, "He will reply, 'Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me.'" I believe that as Christians, it is our job to fight for the lives of the unborn. And with this, that is the conclusion of my speech, and I would like to thank everyone who came